When Jay Weatherill takes over, assuming all goes to plan, it will only be because senior figures on Labor's right have decided to back him rather than one of their own. One of those people is former Attorney General Michael Atkinson. I spoke to him earlier. Michael Atkinson, welcome to 7:30 South Australia.
Thank you.
How is this period of transition going to work?
Well, I'm not sure what the date of transfer will be. Perhaps it'll be at a time when journalists have stopped asking when it's going to be.
But how's it going to work? Mike Rann mentioned that there are some important things to do and that Jay Weatherill, he'd like to mentor him. Will Jay Weatherill be involved in the Roxby Downs negotiations from now on? Will Jay Weatherill be involved in all the things that the Premier does from now on?
I don't really know the answer to that question, but there are a lot of skills to be learnt in politics and there is no shame in having an apprenticeship.
The reason I ask how will the transition period work is because everyone's been making a big thing about how good it is to have a smooth transition period. How can you say that when you don't know how it's going to work?
Well, the Labor Party has had the one leader for 17 years, an extraordinarily long period. There are young people at university today who have known no other leader of the state parliamentary Labor Party than Mike Rann, and he's served with great distinction and will be a Labor hero. The important thing is the whole party is behind Jay Weatherill as successor, and this is yet another smooth Labor Party leadership transition, which contrasts so much with the Liberal changes.
It's not yet. You haven't made the transition yet. You've just said to us you don't know how it's going to happen.
Well, we know that obviously Mr Rann and Mr Weatherill have communicated with one another. The whole party is behind the leadership transition and it will occur at some time in the future.
Why does anyone who has been a minister for 9 years in this government need mentoring?
Well, because leadership has special skills. Mike Rann has those skills, I think, when he's gone.
Was he born with them or did he just acquire them?
Well, I suspect he was born with them in South London, yeah.
So, well, there's a question then whether they can be passed on. But I mean, look, if you were going to become Premier, would you expect to be mentored or do you already have the skills?
I don't think I have the skills, but I would have no shame in receiving the instruction of someone who had that experience. And I think politics is like any other vocation. There's always things you can learn.
Indeed, but after 9 years, people should ask, why are you putting in somebody who can't do the job from day one?
Jay Weatherill will do the job from day one when the Parliamentary Labor Party,
after he's had a lot of mentoring,
unanimously makes him the Premier. He's 11 years younger than Isabel Redmond and he has 9 years experience of the ministry when Isabel Redmond has none. The Labor unity is making a big sacrifice. We have a majority in the party. We could make one of our own people the leader, but we have chosen Jay Weatherill, although he is in the left, because we think he's the best leader for the party and for the state, and I'm sure we won't be disappointed.
Better than your colleague John Rao?
I'm not going to make those comparisons, but the party has reached a unanimous position.
You must have made the comparison in order to decide that Jay Weatherill was better.
Well, I'm not going to disclose all my reasoning to you, Mr Royal. Thank you for the invitation.
Well, I thought maybe you'd take us up on it. One lives in hope, which is an important thing. Should Jay Weatherill be playing a more active role? If he wants this prize, surely he should be the one out there going after it. Surely he should have challenged Mike Rann.
No. Challenging and changing leaders like you change your underpants is what the Liberal Party does. It's not what the South Australian Labor Party does. There are a lot of particularly non-English speaking groups, ethnic groups in our society and religious groups, which I think a future leader of the Labor Party needs to be introduced to. Jay Weatherill has met some of those people. Mike Rann and I will make sure he meets the others.
So after 17 years, the Labor Party is changing its underwear.
Well, the Labor Party is finally having a change after a Tom Playford-like era of Mike Rann, and what a good era it's been.
What do you make of the public involvement or the public disclosure of the involvement of Peter Malinauskas? And I'm asking that, I suppose, from the background of, do you think it was a mistake given the hostile public reaction that occurred to Julia Gillard taking the Prime Ministership from Kevin Rudd and the involvement of the so-called faceless men?
We're in a Westminster system, parliamentary system, whereby the Member of Parliament, with the support of a majority of members of the lower house of Parliament, becomes the Prime Minister or the Premier.
Peter Malinauskas isn't in Parliament. What was he doing being involved in it?
This is a change of leadership which is generated by the majority, the government, in the House of Assembly. the Labor Party is the party of workers and the trade unions. They are an important component of it, and all the officials of ALP-affiliated unions are elected in accordance with the industrial relations law of the country.
But he's not in Parliament. I'm just asking you whether...
Well, most South Australians aren't in Parliament.
But whether
You're not.
Well, indeed, but I didn't go and knock on Mike Grand's door on Friday night. But I'm just wondering whether you accept that proposition that there is a real danger of public hostility to the involvement of the...
I think it's media hostility. I think it goes back to 1963 and the so-called Faceless Men episode at the Lakeside Hotel. It isn't like that at all. Peter Malinauskas has a face, he's rather good looking, and he's got a name, and he was elected by the 20,000 or so members of the Shop Distributive and Allied Employees Association. He has a role to play in a Labor government.
The events of the past few days have taken many people by surprise, but with the next state election not until 2014, South Australians have got more than 2.5 years to get used to the change.